Talk to me about the Choctaw Kid, the battle at Alcatraz, and what you know about this guy.
Yeah, Clarence Choctaw Kid Carnes, one of the lesser known but legendary prisoners at Alcatraz. Probably spent one of the longest stints there out of anybody. I know for sure that when he got there, he was the youngest inmate ever at Alcatraz. And of course, he was involved in the massacre that you mentioned. But yeah, very fascinating character. He gets his nickname, of course. I believe he was, his family members are from a tribe in Oklahoma. I believe that's the Choctaw tribe, of course. And I'm going to just read a little bit of my piece from him, on him, just as a little bit of an overview of how he ended up at Alcatraz, and then I'll go into his later life. The 18-year-old just boarded a boat while handcuffed and shackled to another prisoner. He was at the Rock as the youngest inmate to ever set foot on the island for America's most vicious criminals. As he walked toward the prison, he had no idea he'd become acquainted, even friendly, with some of the most legendary villains in U.S. history. What he did know was that the only thing that mattered was how he was going to break out of the place. So I think that's a good way to start. Yeah. So he ended up at Alcatraz ultimately over a murder and holdup at a gas station. And he was, caught, tried, and sentenced to life. And he eventually ended up at Granite Reformatory First.
Mm-hmm.
And he broke out of there, but they caught him and they gave him 99 years at Alcatraz. So he ends up at Alcatraz, and in May of 46, I believe it was, he participated in the Battle of Alcatraz. I know I called it the massacre before. Sorry about that. I meant the Battle of Alcatraz, like you mentioned. And it was really a botched armed insurrection. Now, something that he did that was interesting during that Battle of Alcatraz was that he refused to, after breaking out with a few fellow inmates, he refused to shoot and kill any of the guards. And I think that's really what earned him some of the respect of some of the top prisoners at Alcatraz moving forward, because the other assailants were either killed or gassed to death, but he was allowed to live because he refused to kill any of the prisoners at the Battle of Alcatraz. So basically, they broke out, got some guns, and fought the officers there. And I believe he got 7 years in isolation, though, after this, but still was allowed to live. And I'm not exactly sure when, but I'm sure he met Al Capone. The story goes that he played chess with Birdman Stroud and Bumpy Johnson, and he became a very good friend of the infamous Whitey Bulger. And in fact, the Choctaw Kid wrote a Bumpy Johnson biography, but it's never surfaced. I think it died with him. That would be something that I would love to get my hands on. Yeah. And apparently, allegedly, Birdman Stroud taught him how to play chess, and he was very close to Whitey Bulger, as I said, that when Carnes died, I believe it was in 88, they kind of buried him disrespectfully. I think they buried him in like Kansas or something like that, just randomly without any, it wasn't proper. And when Whitey Bulger found this out, he actually had his body dug up and transferred over to the Choctaw grounds in Oklahoma with a proper burial. And he bought him like a $4,000 casket, and was there with his other immediate family, and that was it. So that's how close Whitey Bulger was. Now, something that always gets me, being a huge Bumpy Johnson studier and fan, was that he had some, as I mentioned, he had a really great relationship with Bumpy Johnson. He knew him very well, knew him well enough to write his story. And legend has it that the quote-unquote bosses of Alcatraz, really, they were the only ones that were allowed to sit at like the top of I want to say they were like a bleacher section in the yard, because they were allowed to,
I know that
they were the only ones allowed to, sit up there and get the view of the Bay Area and the skyline and all that. But one of those, every once in a while on those days, you might have caught the Choctaw Kid and Bumpy Johnson playing chess. So that shows you how well respected the Choctaw Kid was. I believe he was a very intelligent man too, avid reader and stuff like that. And then he eventually ended up at a halfway house in Kansas City, and I believe he broke parole and he went back to prison in Springfield, Missouri, and then he died there of AIDS in '88. But yeah, definitely a fascinating character who, touched base with pretty much all of the legends at Alcatraz. And they say too that he, when those brothers escaped, or we don't know for sure if they escaped, was it the Anglin brothers, right? That he received a letter from one of them telling him that they made it out. So he always believed that. Yeah, he always said that they made it out and actually broke free for sure and weren't killed. So that's pretty. Yep. He claimed he got a letter from them, and he said I think he also might have helped them plan it out too with a few other guys.